Welcome to the Library Love Fest podcast. I'm Virginia Stanley.
I'm Lainey Mays.
And I'm Grace Carinolo.
We are the library marketing team at HarperCollins Publishers. We bring librarians and great books together. Welcome and enjoy the show.
Book Buzz, HarperCollins Book Buzz. Check it out. Book Buzz, HarperCollins Book Buzz. Brought to you by Library Love Fest.
Hi, everyone. It's Virginia Stanley from the Library Love Fest marketing team at HarperCollins Publishers. I'm here today with Bill Gaythwaite, author of his debut novel, Underburn, which went on sale November 14th, 2023. Hi, Bill.
Hey, hi, Virginia. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about this book, which I absolutely love. This is such a wonderful story with such great characters. So before we dive in, let me do a quick bio so that you all know who Bill Gaythwaite is. Bill Gaythwaite's short fiction has appeared in Subtropics, Chicago Quarterly Review, Puerto del Sol, December, Solstice, and many other publications. Bill's work can also be found in the anthologies Mudville Diaries, a book of baseball memories. Also, #Queer, LGBTQ+, Creative Anthology, Volumes 1 and 2. Bill has worked at Columbia University since 2006, where he was on the staff of the Committee on Asia and the Middle East. He is currently the Assistant Director of Special Populations at Columbia Law School. Bill grew up in Boston and raised his son in New York City and its suburbs. He's an avid swimmer, a movie aficionado, which makes its way into this book, and football fan, which also makes its way into the book. And he lives in New Jersey with his partner, Tom. He's been writing stories since he was 6 years old. Underburn, as I said, is his debut novel. Bill. It's so nice to meet you and talk to you about this book. As I said, I just loved it. This is about a gay man, Frank, and his younger boyfriend, Logan. They'd been renting a home in California, and the devastating wildfires chased them from their home, destroyed their home, and into the doors and the arms, sort of Frank's mother, Iris, who was a former B-list actress, and she offers them temporary shelter from this horrific thing that's happened. And that's just the beginning of the story. So time for me to stop talking and you to start talking. So, Bill, do you want to sort of give a general overview, let readers know what you want them to know, so that they'll go pick up Underburn and dive into this really wonderful story?
Well, thanks for that introduction, Virginia. I really appreciate it. I loved writing the book. It was a real joyful experience for me to write the book. It is a family story, and as you mentioned, it centers on Frank and Logan and Iris, the mom. The first part of the book is about this kind of, hopefully done in a comical way, the difficulties of living together, people thrown together in a situation, a difficult situation, in a crisis situation, and trying to, the novel shifts from, perspectives. And so you're seeing the difficulties of that, of people living together in difficult circumstances. And then Iris received some urgent news from Maine, which is where she grew up, and she fled 50 years earlier from the potato farm where she was born. And she convinces the guys to go with her, go east to sort of confront her strange sister and brother-in-law, who are raising their 12-year-old granddaughter. So the second half of the book kind of opens up. We meet new characters. There's some new storylines that happen as well. And I was interested in writing the book and having it take place on the two coasts, kind of maybe highlighting the differences in the characters and kind of the journey really of Iris, who had started in Maine, goes to California, comes back to Maine, so it is a family story. I think I'd love to believe it's a relatable story because it is told from many perspectives, and it's a multi-generational story.
Right. I love the way you wrote so we were saying before that the book is almost like a two-parter, because the first half is all about Frank, who is a 40-something-year-old man who has to go back to his mother's house with his much younger boyfriend and just stay there while they figure out what to do about devastating loss of their home, which they rented, and they didn't own it, and that causes a whole nother host of problems. But the bigger problem, well, not problem, but right off the bat, that there's tension. There's tension between Frank and his mother, and Logan, who is honestly a very likable. The more I read, the more I liked him. I just thought he was so well-intentioned, and I think Frank's mother's, sort of, she's not putting up with him in the beginning. She's really got her dukes up about him.
Well, I like that assessment, Virginia. I appreciate it, because with Logan, who is a featured extra on a television show geared to teenagers, and he's very aware of the social media aspects of the show. And as you implied, Iris doesn't suffer fools well, and she has this kind of culture clash with Logan, who is actually, I believe, a likable character, but it takes Iris a little while to kind of see past some of the outside, characteristics that Logan has. But he is Logan looks at the world in somewhat of a wide-eyed, clear-eyed way. He is more than he appears, and hopefully that comes across as the book goes along.
Yes, there's definitely depth to him that at first you kind of don't see. And what I liked about the way you wrote the book is each character you sort of give their background without disconnecting them from the other characters. It's like, oh, this is so interesting to see, like, okay, what's their backstory? Because everybody's got one, and so why are they the way they are now? What's happened in their past, their childhood, and Logan's childhood, good God, that was no fun for him. And so it's really, I love that, because there's a reason why they are the way they are. And there's more if you can crack the shell, you see more.
Well, I mean, I think that's and I appreciate that. That is kind of what I was going after. I mean, in the books that I admire the most, books by Joan Silber or Elizabeth Strout, and Sue Miller does this. A number of people do this or try to do this, where you see that the choices that people make or the paths not taken, they kind of add up to who we become today. And I really did have, with all the characters, try to have the past intrude on the present with kind of all the characters and see how they were defined, and also see how they take that information and they can kind of move on. And so in many ways, I think one of the themes of the book is making peace with the past, and trying to move forward in kind of a spirit of forgiveness and positivity.
And choices. You talk a lot about the characters talk about the choices that they make or the choices that they don't make. And sometimes, I mean, let's talk about Iris for a second. I mean, she's kind of a blast. She's she's got this history, and being sort of this B, like a B, what do they call it?
A B television actress, a B actress, somebody who never was really a star, never had their own TV series, but they were a working actor. Somebody who was able to support themselves, but not in any kind of luxurious way. So the first half of Iris's career is as an actress in television. She's getting parts, and those things start to dry up as she gets a bit older, and kind of the cruel way that Hollywood does. And she then segues into real estate. But in terms of Iris and the choices she makes, she is somebody who's also not somebody who wants to look back, and is very practical, someone who's a very self-sufficient person, not somebody who's mourning her losses, but certainly the choices that she has made have influenced who she is. And interestingly, with Iris, the way that I found that character was I was watching a video on YouTube of Nancy Sinatra singing her hit "These Boots Are Made for Walking," and with her backup dancers. And I recommend it to anyone who really wants to see that, because it's really a hoot, and it's great. It's great in many ways. But I looked at the backup dancers, and I started thinking, wow, I wonder whatever happened to these backup dancers. And this is something that I do to the annoyance of my partner sometimes, where I'll like pause a film and say, what happened to that person who's in the background with the extras? I'm wondering, where are they now? And right around the same time, I had friends who had tragically lost their home to a wildfire. And they had moved in with elderly parents and were trying to make the best of it. And they were telling me some funny stories about that, kind of heroically, considering they were going through such a difficult, sad time. And I created a microfiction piece for them, which I sent to them by text. So really, Underburn started as a text, which is kind of funny. But Iris, the character, came to me really from watching the Nancy Sinatra video. I'm wondering what would have happened to perhaps this backup dancer this many years later has been impacted by this Southern California wildfire. So that kind of got the plot moving. But Iris, as you say, I mean, she's I enjoyed writing her. She was in my head a lot. I would sometimes imagine things that Iris would say while I was experiencing the world. So she was fun to write.
I don't know who you have in your head. Should this be made into a film? But well, you know what? You go first. Do you have somebody?
It's so interesting with that, because the people who've read the book have been very kind, saying even the idea of that, which of course it's so unlikely. I mean, it's very few movies really get made from. I mean, it seems like a lot get made, but really, when you think of the number of books and the number of movies, it's not that likely. I've had people tell me Jean Smart. I've had people mention Jamie Lee Curtis. I've had one that did come to me, which I think would be really interesting to me, because I'm a huge fan, is Jessica Lange. So it's curious. I try not to let myself think about that, but it is kind of a fun thing to do.
Manifest it, Bill.
That's what I need to do, Virginia.
I can see, like, even when you write sort of this, like the second looks, like the second takes, when somebody says something wacky, it's like, what? I mean, I can see it. I don't know. It's wonderful to read, and it's I don't know. It runs in my head as a film. I actually was thinking of Holland Taylor.
Oh, that's wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Fan there too.
There's, so we've got, again, such wonderful characters, so fully drawn out. And you get the first half of the story, which is them all, Iris and Logan and Frank, trying to sort of connect or reconnect or just stay out of each other's way. And I sort of like the way, because these boots are made for walking. Like, Logan just loses his mind when he realizes, like, he's sort of been mocking her in a way, like, oh, this is your headshot or whatever. And then when he finds out, he knew it. I mean, he was like, you were in that video? What? And then they're just like, and then the train goes off
Right. No, that's true. No, that is, and there is a moment. It's really with the Logan Iris conversations in the book. I think that you really do hopefully see the characters fleshed out in the actual conversations that they do have, as they start to kind of be aware of each other, and they understand that Logan is, 25 years old, and Iris is 73, and they had very different backgrounds, different approaches to life, and yet they do find some common ground that they're able to really kind of, I think, by the end of the book, admire each other and like each other.
And one of the bonds between them, other than, loving theater or loving movies and the entire, in the bigger picture, the entertainment industry and sort of their um, relationship with that, is their love for Frank and their concern for him, because he's got things that have happened.
Frank hasn't had an easy time. I think that he's had somewhat of a troubled existence, but he's also somebody who's putting one foot in front of the other and trying to go forward. And so I think another theme to the book really is resilience, and how it takes a lot. I mean, life is challenging, and Frank has had more than his share of challenges, and he and also I think in many ways it questions everything around him, kind of when is the next shoe going to drop. He gets into that kind of place, but it's the catalyst in terms of the fire actually brings people closer together. These sometimes, as crises can do, can get people to kind of see things in a different perspective.
Right, and that is that goes through the whole book. So the second half of the book, when now they go to Maine because something has happened, and then Iris wants them to come with her, and then you meet this whole other cast of characters. And I don't want to give away too much because the joy is in the read, but those relationships with those characters are so, the emotions, whatever they are so palpable and real. You're sort of flipping the pages going, what am I reading right now? What's happening here? And it's really wonderful and real.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I also, want to make sure that people know that while there is all this going on, and there's these interpersonal relationships that are a bit all over the place, there's also some real fun humor, quips and funny things that they say to each other. I'll say one that I had written down was Iris, do you want to talk about Iris sort of, giving Logan sort of, the education of movies,
the film
ones he's never seen.
Well, I think in the book, Iris becomes aware that Logan, as a 25-year-old, doesn't necessarily have the strongest knowledge of the history of film, which surprises her and also concerns her, because she says, he's making a living in the field. It would be, I think she, thinks it would be like studying to be a psychiatrist and never having heard of Freud, because Logan lets it slip that has never seen a Bette Davis movie and doesn't really know who she is, which horrifies Iris. But Iris then decides to take it on herself to provide an education to Logan, and she hits DVR'd a number of films off Turner Classic Movies, and she kind of sets him up, and every day they see while those early days when they're staying with her, sets up kind of a screening room, which is really just the living room where they have a big TV, and she sits and explains films to Logan, and Logan is very receptive to it, but Frank kind of opts out, having said, I've already graduated from the Iris Film and Society and lecture series. I'm not doing any more of this, because he's grown up like that with Iris being very she loves film. Film was very important to her, obviously, and she came to Hollywood because of that. But she also wants people she wants to share that knowledge, so she's going to do it. And as you pointed out, she's a very acerbic person. There's a lot of quips is the right word for it. I mean, she's I think my editor had me slow those down a little bit, because Iris would tend to quip about everything, but she's as I said, she was a fun character for that reason.
There's one sentence in here where they're watching now Voyager, and it's the scene where Bette Davis accepts the other character lights the 2 cigarettes in his mouth, and he hands one to Bette Davis, and Logan's watching this with her, and he goes, "Oh, yuck, smoking." And she says, "Jesus, Logan, it was 1943. Everybody smoked then. Children were going through a pack a day. It was a different time. Get over yourself."
Yeah, that pretty much encapsulates Iris. I'd say that line probably pretty much does it. Yeah.
Right. Can we talk a little bit about So, I mean, again, we can't talk about the book too much because, again, the joy is in the read. But there are so many things that are that you touch on, and rehab struggles. Let's just say that, and interfamilial issues, aging choices, whatnot, and it all just flows so beautifully. I'd like to hear you talk a little bit about your influences. You wrote a wonderful post that we have on Library Love Fest, which people should go read because it's just so lovely. And but do you want to talk a little bit about your parents as influencers?
Yeah, I mean, I was really grateful to be able to write that post, and because it got me back thinking about my parents, and specifically about the importance of libraries to my parents. I grew up outside of Boston, just outside, and my parents were both great readers. They read every day. They always had a book. My father used to carry a book with him. He would always have, a book to read on the train when he commuted, or my mother would have a stack of books that she read. We didn't have a library in my elementary school, and she started the library in my elementary school when I was there, and she continued as a volunteer, the chief volunteer at the library. Even after I left the elementary school, after I was in the middle school and high school, she was still there. But it's a very happy memory I have because I would see her in the halls or going to the library. She would be there, be very happy in her work. My dad was a great reader. We didn't have a lot of extra money to buy books, so we went to the library, and he really treated these like a trip to the ball game. Like he was excited to go to the library. Come on, we're going to the library. I mean, it was a treat. When my sisters and I got our library cards, it was treated as that was a celebration. That was almost like getting your driver's license because you got your library card. And my dad also, just the way my dad cared for books, like you just had to take care of your books, and you would never have an overdue library book. That was, you had to be respectful to get your library books back on time. That was a big deal in my house. So I think and they were both great storytellers, maybe because they were such great readers, but very different people. But they would tell wonderful stories, and it was a huge influence on me. Just, I think, as a writer, I did start writing stories when I was 6. I feel that they both encouraged that. They both, really got me started thinking about reading and started thinking about stories, because you'd sit around the kitchen table and they would tell stories from their own past or from something that they had read. They were both very political as well, but on kind of opposite sides of the political spectrum, which was interesting. So there were lively discussions at the kitchen table and lively stories told. So I was very lucky like that, to have that influence when I was growing up.
That's wonderful. Very interesting that they were they had different political views. So that must have made for, really for an interesting conversation. So, and especially as a child to see how, maybe sometimes it gets heated, maybe sometimes it doesn't, but in the end, these are your parents, and they have their own opinions about things. But that's a great, it's great.
No,
history.
it was interesting. I mean, I think that they were, certainly really opinionated. But my mother used to keep a file cabinet, so she would tear so if there was she had a particular dislike for President Nixon, and so she would, if my father said something, she would quote Nixon, and he would say he never said that, and she would go to the file cabinet. Of course, this is long before the internet, and she would find the newspaper clipping that she had kept in the file cabinet and put it in front of my father and say, no, on this date he said this. And yeah, so we witnessed those things as a really little kid. I was, the engagement of that was very, very interesting.
Yeah, and that's a great story to tell. And a really cool memory.
Yeah, no, it is. They were amazing people, very different people, but very very interesting people to grow up around.
Well, I think that they would be so proud, because this book is in the hands now of readers. We were
Oh,
saying.
I think they really would be. I think it would mean so much to them, the importance of libraries to them, that I would actually have a book that could be in a library is amazing. So I'm thrilled. I know they would be too.
Yeah, for sure. Um, is Bill, again, because we don't want to say too much and we want the joy to be in the read, and it is a joy. So please get out and get this book, because there's actually not a good place to stop at this book, I think. Is there anything else that you want to say that we haven't touched on? Because this is it. We can do this.
No, I mean, this is such, I mean, I really appreciate it. As I said, I just appreciate the opportunity. I do think, as I said, I think a little bit earlier, but I'll say it again, that the book is, I think, relatable to a lot of different readers, a lot of different people. It's because it's a multi-generational story, and does shift perspective. So hopefully you get the sense of everybody kind of dealing with their own situations in their unique ways. And I appreciate that you mentioned the humor of the book, because I do think there are some serious things certainly that happen in the book, and there's some sad things that happen in the book. But I think it's tempered with humor, hopefully, and compassion. And by the end of the book, I think that the characters change because they want to change, and because there's reason for that. So I think that the journey of the book, as I said, it was a joyful thing to write. I hope it's a joyful book to read. So
it is a joyful book to read, and I'm glad that you said that, because the characters range from the 13-year-old girl who's like starstruck at meeting this this 25-year-old celebrity, and she's telling all her friends, and then you go to these older generations in the family, and what they've had to deal with in their lives, in their town, where progress has sort of changed the face of the town that they go back to in Maine. I mean, there's really a lot here, and there is a lot for everybody. And I loved Joe. I thought Joe was a great character. Really, really appreciated him a lot. Kind of told it like it was. And you'll have to read the book to find out who Joe is. I would like to. You have several great quotes here. A lovely review from Kirkus, which compares this book with shades of Ann Tyler or Elizabeth Strout, calling it a fine debut. Lovely. Quotes from David Levitt and Christopher Castellani. There's this one quote from Natalie Jenner, author of the Jane Austen Society, and she calls this a wonderfully engaging tale of both family and the underside of fame. Bill Gaythwaite's debut novel, Underburn, mirrors the deceptive richness of the very generational ties it so charmingly explores, the long memories, conflicts big and small, surprisingly pivotal moments, and rediscovered bonds. One rarely encounters characters drawn with such candor, warmth, and humanity. You will gladly cheer and care for everyone as they seek to make peace with the past while risking it all for a brand new future. I love that quote.
No, it's so, I mean, it touched me so much, and the writers that were kind enough to read the book and found those things to write, it meant so much to me coming from them, because these are all people I admire so much. So I was very touched by that. It was I'm just very grateful.
Well, I'm grateful that you wrote it, and I'm very it's an honor to read this book and to pass the word on to others to please pick up a copy of Underburn. It just went on sale in November, and it's a story for everybody. And I think we'll leave it at that. And thank you so much, Bill.
Virginia, that was so kind of you. I really appreciate it. And this has really been a joy to talk to you.
Same here. It's been an honor, truly.
Thank you.
Well, anyway, that's it. We will have another podcast next month. But in the meantime, get a copy, sit back, relax, and get lost in the pages of this really wonderful story. So thank you very much, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Library Love Fest podcast. For more information, go to librarylovefest.com. Enjoying the show? We would love to hear what you think. Find us on Facebook and Twitter at Library Love Fest, on Instagram and TikTok at Harper Library. And you can always give us a call and leave us a message. It might end up on the show. That number is 212-207-7773. Be sure to rate and review us and share the show with a friend. Until next time.